Welcome to Excel 2010 Advanced Functions. I'm Trainer Lori. If you don't know what functions are, please review the tutorials on basic functions and intermediate functions. If you know what an argument is, that's what goes inside the parentheses, and you know they're separated by commas, then you're ready for this class. Functions on the formulas bar under the fx insert function or the fx on the formula bar itself. And you can search for it, or if you know what it is, you can just type it in and find it. The first one I want to show you is pretty simple. It's a text function, and essentially that will take something like a date serial number here and format it a certain way. And I want to show you that because we do have a class on custom formatting, and if you don't know how to do that, you might want to watch that class. Exact is when you want to see if the two values are exactly the same, if they match or not. And so you can use the equal exact, and then you compare them. You have the first cell and the second cell, and it'll compare. It is case sensitive. So if they do not match exactly, it will return a false. This is like using the formula equal A1 equal B1, assuming that your data that you want to compare is in A1 and B1, and it will return either true or false. The next one is nested if. We actually covered this in our intermediate class, but it's so important, a lot of people ask about it. I want to show it here as well. Nested if. Normally, you would have three arguments in an if function. However, in this case, I want to see the grades. So we know how many points there are, and so we start off with the equals if, and then we start the nesting with the first part of it. If B2 is greater than or equal to 90, because a 90 or above returns an A. And notice it's in quotes, that means that it is the actual text. Then instead of giving it the third argument, which would be if not true, then false. Instead, it'll start it all over again. If B2 is greater than or equal to 80. Notice that it's going down in size because it's going to go through and look at all the ones that meet the first criteria. And if it doesn't meet that criteria, then it goes through and meets all the ones that are in the second criteria, and that's our B. And then of course then we'd have C. And with D, notice there is finally one that doesn't have any criteria, and that's simply F. Then that's because it's false. If it doesn't meet any of these other criteria, it becomes F. And also please note that for every open parentheses, there's a closed parentheses. The good thing is Excel will remind you if you forget to put that in. In 2010, you now have the ability to nest up to 64 functions in one formula. Left, mid, and right, these are great if you want to just show certain things. For example, I just want to see the left 3 characters in C10, and so in that case it will just show me those. We also can concatenate. We can use that in conjunction with concatenate or merge it together with some special formatting. And so I don't want to show the first characters in a social security. I don't want to show the last 4, but I want to show that there are placeholders there. So that's a good tool to do that. Probably an intermediate function, but now we're going to make it advanced, because we're going to start merging it. For example, len or length, it stands for length. Oh, I want to know how many characters are in the cell. We could use the len function. However, I just had somebody ask me about this the other day. They said, I want to be able to take off the last 2 zeros, because the database automatically puts 2 zeros in. I don't want those. I just want to show all the first characters, no matter how many there are. Because I first suggested just using a find and replace, but of course that wouldn't work for this one because it would also take off the 0 that is needed. So this is the function that would do it. It's a nested function. It says left, show me the left that are the length of it minus 2 characters. So in other words, the last 2 characters will not show. Then we can use length in conjunction with sum. So for each of these cells, I want to see what the length of the characters is. I would have to use this function over and over and over again. And that's okay, that'll work. If I want to add them up, then I would have to have a sum function to add them all up. But wouldn't it be nice to have one tool that could do all of that without me having to create all those formulas? In this case, 5 formulas. But imagine if you had 2,500 rows instead of just 5 rows. In that case, I would want to nest it. So I'd say equal sum, and then put length inside the nesting. However, we're going to get an error message. Whenever you get an error message when it looks like it should work, then that's when you want to consider an array. instead of hitting enter, hit Control Shift Enter, and notice what Excel did. It put brackets around the function, around the entire formula, and it works now. It automatically shows the same as doing all of these formulas. One formula took the place of that. But please remember, it's Control, Shift, and Enter. That's why it's called a CSE formula. An array is also called CSE. You can even nest arrays. For example, in this case, I want to add the smallest values in the list, just the two smallest values in the list. Of course, if there's a small function, there's always a large function too. So if I use my normal sum, and the small, it might work, but if I name this list, then I can use that name. It's a named range, and notice there are now brackets inside the named range. That means I want to see the first and the second, and if I wanted 3, 4, or 5, I can put those in separated by commas. Those go inside brackets that I must type in. However, I cannot type in the outside brackets. The only way that can create is by hitting Control plus Shift plus Enter to make it an array. So this is a little more advanced. A very common thing is to have a database, and I want to use it for lookup. So I've got a name and address database, and I want some of that information to appear somewhere else. I just don't want to retype it because I don't want to make a mistake, and if it's updated, it will only be updated in this original database. VLOOKUP is probably the most common of all the advanced functions. What we want to do is, based on our other database, remember our other database is the advanced filter one, I know that that's current. But if I put in a company name here, I want to be able to find the city here. So this is where my formula goes, and the first argument is, what do I want to match from? Then where do I want to match it to? And that's where I choose the entire database where I'm pulling the information from. And then the third argument is, which column do I want to match? So it's saying, look up the name here and take the 5th column and put it in here. It's very easy and very powerful. Sometimes I don't have my database sorted. It may not be in sort order. And if it's not, then you will get an error, or you can change this. So either sort this, make sure that your database is sorted, or add this 4th argument that says false. That means it's not sorted. Index and match work very similar to VLOOKUP, but the VLOOKUP or vertical lookup will not allow you to match from the first column. And so index and match, nested functions, will do that. So what it works very similar to the VLOOKUP, just a little bit different. So the first argument says, what do you want to go in here? And so you would choose the column from the database that you would want to show. And then you'll say, match it from what? Where's the matching information? And in this case, we want to match company name from where we want the data to show to back to the database again, to company name here. So highlight those columns. And it's very similar, but it does have a 4th argument, and that is a number. It's either going to be -1, +1, or 0. 0 means it must be an exact match. If you have numbers in here, you can have the option to have them less than the number or greater than the number, and that's what the other options are. dsum is a very popular database function. There's also dcount and daverage that work the same way. So essentially what that says is I want to find something in my database. See where my cursor is? It's right up here in an entirely new cell, and it says, where's my database? So that's the first function, or the first argument. And then it says match what? And this one's a little more unique because instead of highlighting the entire column, you simply highlight the name of the column. So that makes it a little different. But now it's going to add up everything that happens to be in cells, but only if it meets a certain criteria. And the criteria, it has both the label, and notice city here is exactly the same as city here, and it must match exactly. And then I can type in whatever city I want. And when I type it in, the sum will change based on whatever city I happen to want. Now remember, this is spelling sensitive. You have to spell it exactly the same as what's in your database. A lot of people don't want to have that separate cell with the data in it, and so a SUMIF allows you to do it within the function itself. However, you can do it both ways. So let me show you exactly what I'm talking about. Using SUMIF, it says, where's my database? And so in this case, I want to say the performance rating. Look for a specific performance rating that meets this criteria. And in this case, I've typed it into a cell, so I put a cell reference there. However, if I want, I could actually put in 3 in here. If I want it to always show 3, then I could put it in here. And then it says add up what? So if it is a 3 performance rating, then add up these numbers. Now, this criteria can be anything. For example, if it's text, for example, a name of a city like London, then I could put London in quotes, and it will look up. If this list has London in it, then it would look up based on that. So again, you can use this with or without typing it into a cell. If you want, you can just leave it in the criteria, unlike the dsum. If you get a little muddled, sometimes we get into these advanced ones we don't use very often. Remember, you have a helper simply by clicking in the function and the arguments, and it'll show you. But if you want a little bit more, then you just click the FX button, and the FX button will open it up and explain a little bit more about what those arguments are. If you have any requests, please email them to me at traininglory@live.com. And if you enjoyed it, please click like. Thank you.